have a rich folk music. The most popular song of the missing community is called Oinitam.
Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour. India all set for 2+2 ministerial dialogue. US Secretaries of State and Defense to attend. White House calls India a key strategic partner. India reiterates need for zero tolerance for terrorism. Calls for the release of hostages held by the Hamas. Sends 38 tons of humanitarian assistance to Gaza. French President Emmanuel Macron hosts a conference on humanitarian aid for Gaza, calls for protection of civilians. And the 37th National Games of India closes in Goa. The western state of Maharashtra tops the medal tally. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and Foreign Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar will host their US counterparts Lloyd Austin and Antony Blinken for talks in New Delhi on Friday. The India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue will likely focus on security cooperation and strengthening the Quad and Indo-Pacific economic framework for prosperity. Jessica Taneja reports from New Delhi.
US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin arrived in India for the 5th Ministerial 2+2 dialogue with his Indian counterpart. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will also co-chair the dialogue. This year, the 2+2 dialogue will facilitate a high-level review of progress across various facets of defense and security cooperation, technology value chain partnerships, and people-to-people connections.
I guess considering the nature of our relationship and the strategic global strategic partnership, a variety of issues are discussed, including topical issues, regional developments. So I wouldn't rule it out, but I certainly wouldn't like to prejudge it.
America views India as a key strategic partner, and the relationship has gained momentum over the years.
But India is a key strategic partner, and I think you saw that on full display when Prime Minister Modi was here. But we'll leave it to the Indian government and the Prime Minister to decide what their stance is going to be on any particular crisis or contingency around the world, to include the Middle East. But they remain a key strategic partner, and we're dedicated to advancing that partnership every single day.
This year, the focus will be on deepening security cooperation between the two countries and the exchange of views about shared priorities for augmenting cooperation in multilateral forums.
I expect, of course, that deepening the security cooperation and partnership will be one of the many topics that are discussed. It was something that was obviously raised during Prime Minister Modi's state visit earlier this year, and I know the Secretary looks forward to being there and in engaging directly with his counterparts on this. But I'll let the trip take place before we talk more about it.
4 rounds of dialogue have been held so far to reaffirm the India and US comprehensive global strategic partnership. It continues to provide the two nations an opportunity to exchange views about important regional and global developments. Jessica Taneja for DD India.
New Delhi will host the 5th edition of the India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue on Friday. The foreign and defense ministers of both countries will take part in it. The annual dialogue takes place amid the Ukraine, Russia and Israeli-Palestinian conflicts. Jessica Taneja gives you a lowdown on it.
Every year, the 2+2 ministerial dialogue brings together India's foreign and defense ministers with their US counterparts to address and collaborate on common concerns to enhance and strengthen relationship between the two nations. Over the years, America has offered strong bipartisan support to India. From making it a major defense partner in 2016 to holding Quad meetings at the leaders' level. For a non-treaty ally, America has made a significant change in its policy. With India-US trade likely to touch $300 billion in 2026 and 27, the ministerial dialogue helps in promoting forums like G20, the Quad, and IPEF, or the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. For America, India is also an important ally for its free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. The 2+2 ministerial dialogue has seen some great momentum over the years. The signing of Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement, or the LEMOA, in 2016, the signing of COMCASA, or the Communications Compatibility and Security Agreement, in 2018, along with the Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement, or the BECA, in 2020. Not only was signing COMCASA and other important pacts in the foundational years a big step, but providing waivers to India from Russia sanctions was a significant advancement in the relationship. In fact, 5 years ago, India was given the Strategic Trade Authorization status for transfers of some dual-use high-technology trade. While these deals are good signs of convergences, looking at the current momentum, further framework for overcoming hurdles on regulation of technology, digital economy, few matters of global governance have also been put in place now. Jessica Taneja for DD India.
And Jessica Taneja joins us from New Delhi. Jessica, why don't I begin by asking you to put Friday's 2+2 dialogue in its proper context for the viewers in terms of, 1, optics, and 2, the likely outcomes?
Well, the likely outcomes would be circling around the security cooperation that the two have been addressing for a very long time, and also focusing on the strategy for the Indo-Pacific as well, where India is seen as an important partner in the region. Apart from that, within the security cooperation framework, we're also expecting the ministers from both the countries to review the progress on the current initiatives that have already been undertaken. For example, the ICET, or the Initiative of Critical Emerging Technologies, that was signed earlier this year in January, pardon me. And under that, the General Electric and the HAL deal was also signed, where the co-production of those jet engines, the 99 jet engines deal under $1 billion, was also making progress. So these likely outcomes will see some kind of fruition. We'll know the progress of that. Well, this is just one part of it, but looking at the kind of foundational pacts that were signed between India and US since this ministerial dialogue began in 2016, we've seen the cementing of the COMCASA Pact, or the compatibility of communications compatibility and security agreement, very, very crucial there, because that allows India to sort of have the kind of US origin security systems, and that is an enhanced cooperation between the two, because that was a precedence to India becoming a military defense partner with America as a non-NATO ally. So of course, all of these significant developments do seem to tell us that India has become a strategic partner, and how important is this 2+2 ministerial dialogue when it comes to reviewing progress and looking at the kind of initiatives that have undertaken and what more needs to be done. So tomorrow, hopefully, we'll know what the ministers discuss when it comes to all these pacts that were signed over the years in the 2+2 dialogue.
Jessica, let's for a moment zoom out and look at the world map at large. The Indo-Pacific has emerged as a pillar of India and US's defense and security cooperation. Now, India and the US are members of the Quad. What are the key drivers of the India-US partnership in the Indo-Pacific in particular?
We're talking about the Indo-Pacific. I think the IPEC, or the Indo-Pacific Economic Forum, and also the Indo-Pacific Strategy broadly aligns India on the US interest. And we've seen the kind of initiatives that have undertaken, the exporting of military hardware for one, especially the jet engine deal, the MQ-5 drones also that were discussed. So of course, all of these initiatives make India an important partner in the Indo-Pacific, and perhaps we're going to see how these initiatives move forward. It is not just about only countering China in the region. Broadly, it is also about how crucial a role can India play in the Indian Ocean, given the kind of interests that have been broadening in the complex geopolitical structure, Ramesh.
Jessica, I have just about enough time to ask you one last question on this broadcast. People-to-people ties is an important pillar of the India-US relationship as well. It includes issues such as migration, mobility, and visa. Would the 2+2 dialogue touch upon such issues too?
Well, so far, the spokesperson for the Ministry of External Affairs hasn't elaborated on these particular issues, whether they will be taken up or not. But we are expecting, as we've been told, that people-to-people ties will be on the agenda. And we're hoping that the H-1B visa issue, and apart from that, other migration issues and also individual cases will likely to come up, will be coming up for discussions. And this is something where both the nations have sort of strengthened ties on. And a lot of momentum has been made. But it's only tomorrow, Ramesh, we'll know. Apart from the Middle East and the Canada standoff, we will get more clarification whether this also is centered around that.
And very quickly, Jessica, if you will, how's the India-US initiative on critical and emerging technology, or the ICET, which was launched, as you said, in January this year, coming along?
Right. As I was telling you earlier, this initiative, the Initiative for Critical and Emerging Technologies that was signed, it makes India an important partner in the region, apart from the NATO allies that America already has. And let me point out the few technology exchanges that were discussed. I already spoke about the jet engine deal. We also talk about including AI, quantum computing, and of course semiconductors. You recall just a month or two ago, Macron was inaugurated. The factory for Macron was inaugurated in Gujarat, so a big step there. So we're going to see a lot more initiatives come forth, especially when it comes to setting up the semiconductor industry in India, and that has become crucial because that is one of the ways where America is looking to diversify its supply chains, and that has also dominated the discussions between the two. And hopefully, we'll hear more on that, Ramesh.
All right, as Jessica was reporting there, the U.S. Defense Minister is already in New Delhi, and we are waiting for U.S. Foreign Minister Antony Blinken to land in New Delhi in a couple of hours from now. Jessica, for now, thank you. Appreciate it. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Israel claims to have taken over a Hamas stronghold in northern Gaza after a 10-hour battle. Putin visits Kazakhstan in only his third known foreign trip since the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant against him. And Spain's socialists reach a deal with the Catalan separatist Junts party for forming the government.
Climate change is wreaking havoc across the world. It's time to save the Earth or face extinction. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times, only on DD India. Which way is the Russia-Ukraine war heading? Has it reached a stalemate? Watch Connecting the Dots at these times, only on DD India.
Welcome to Lakshadweep, the land of 100,000 islands. The aquatic wonderland of India. An archipelago of spectacular marine gems, colorful coral and crystal clear lagoons. A kaleidoscope of turquoise blue. Each island of Lakshadweep draws in explorers with its unique beauty.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. 5 people were killed in a Ukrainian missile strike on the town of Skadovsk in the Russian-controlled part of Ukraine's Kherson region on Thursday. A Russian missile damaged a Liberia-flagged civilian vessel entering the Black Sea port in Odessa region, killing 1 and injuring 4 people. The vessel was supposed to transport iron ore to China. Meanwhile, reacting to a recent attack, Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister has said that an alternative Black Sea export corridor is operational despite the attacks. Now, Russia has targeted the port infrastructure of Ukraine, especially after Moscow withdrew from an agreement mediated by the United Nations that ensure the safe transit of Ukrainian grain across the Black Sea. Ukraine's parliament has approved a state budget for next year on Thursday. It aimed to strengthen the country's army and defenses as Kiev battles Russia in a 20-month-old war. Budget revenues are set at $48.4 billion, while for next year, more than half of all Ukrainian budget spending is planned for the defense sector to fund the war effort against Russia. The war-torn country will face a budget deficit of about $43.58 billion in 2024. Russian President Vladimir Putin described his visit to Kazakhstan and talks with Kazakh President Tokayev on Thursday as practical and constructive. The 2 leaders also signed key agreements in Astana. Earlier in the day, both leaders praised relations between the 2 countries. The visit is Putin's 3rd known trip abroad since the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant against him for war crimes. The Kremlin has rejected the charges. Putin's visit to Kazakhstan came just a week after French President Emmanuel Macron visited the oil-rich Central Asian nation. In Spain, an agreement between the Socialist Party and the Junts Party of the Catalonia region to back acting Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's bid for another term will apply during the 4 years of the country's legislature. Santos Cerdán, the 3rd-ranking Socialist Party leader who has been involved in the negotiations, told journalists in Belgium's capital, Brussels, that it is not an agreement for an investiture, rather it's a deal for a 4-year legislature. Cerdán said that the deal included an amnesty for people involved in the northeastern region of Catalonia's failed bid for independence from the Spanish capital, Madrid, covering events between 2012 and 2023. He said that judges would decide the specific names of individuals for whom the amnesty will apply. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak hosted a reception at his residence to celebrate the Indian festival of Diwali. Sunak welcomed the guests from the British Indian community to Downing Street to mark the upcoming holiday. Julia Chapman reports from London.
Britain's first Hindu Prime Minister is celebrating his 2nd Diwali at number 10 Downing Street. Rishi Sunak says he now associates Diwali with fond memories of becoming the country's leader around this time last year. In pictures shared on social media, the halls of the Prime Minister's home and office were adorned with marigolds and candles for the occasion. Sunak and his wife Akshata Murthy could be seen lighting a lamp and welcoming visitors. Addressing his guests, Sunak joked that he should swap allegiances in cricket to support India given its winning streak. The reception included high-profile guests like the Indian High Commissioner and Bollywood stars, as well as children who recited Sanskrit verse. Sunak describes himself as a proud Hindu and reportedly makes regular visits to a temple in his native city of Southampton. On their recent visit to India for the G20 summit, Sunak and Murthy offered prayers at the Akshardham temple in New Delhi. The Prime Minister's office has shared good wishes to people around the world on the occasion of this Diwali. Julia Chapman in London, reporting for DD India.
India beats China in the latest QS World University Rankings for Asia. There are 148 higher education institutes from India on the list. China is second with 133 and Japan comes third with 96. Anil Thomas reports. All right, we'll try to get that story in just a bit, but moving on for now, Israel claims to have taken over a Hamas stronghold in northern Gaza after a 10-hour battle. While humanitarian crisis engulfs Gaza, India reiterated its position on humanitarian aid and maintains its stance on zero tolerance for terrorism.
Israel claims to have taken over Hamas' stronghold in northern Gaza after a 10-hour battle as people leave North Gaza for the south. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has denied reports that a proposal to release 12 hostages in exchange for a 3-day humanitarian pause is under discussion.
There
will be no ceasefire without the release of our hostages. Anything else is futile. There is a tiny handful of people who do not represent this public, who take the law into their own hands. We are not prepared to tolerate it. We are not about to accept it. We will act against it in every way.
Stopping at a cluster of apartment blocks, every building within sight is scarred by battle. Walls have been blown away, bullet holes and shrapnel dot the facades. The palm trees are shredded and broken. India has once again stated its position on the humanitarian crisis and reiterated its statement on zero tolerance towards terrorism.
We have strongly condemned the horrific terrorist attack on Israel, urged the need for zero tolerance for terrorism, and called for immediate and unconditional release of hostages. We have also conveyed our deep concern at the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the increasing civilian toll, and welcomed efforts to de-escalate the situation and provide humanitarian assistance.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres also reacted on civilian casualty.
Terrible, catastrophic, I'd say, humanitarian situation. Lack of medicine in hospitals. So it is absolutely essential to have a flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza that corresponds to the dramatic needs that the population is facing.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg told reporters in Berlin that NATO allies would support humanitarian pauses.
International law must be respected, civilians must be protected, and NATO allies support humanitarian pause to allow aid to reach Gaza. The suffering we have seen in recent weeks reminds us once again.
Organizations from more than 80 countries and international organizations met at a Paris conference on providing aid to civilians in Gaza. Leaders from Egypt, Jordan and G20 members, except Russia, were among those present at the conference. French President Emmanuel Macron said that there must be a continuous flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza, including fuel.
Civilians must be protected. That is absolutely indispensable and non-negotiable, and is an immediate necessity. And in the long term, that is also even a condition of efficiency for our fight against terrorists.
Israeli troops eliminated Ibrahim Abu Maghzib, the head of Hamas anti-tank missile unit, as the Israel-Hamas war entered its 34th day. This comes as Israeli forces fought Hamas through shell-blasted buildings in the North Gaza Strip. With agency inputs, Shagnik Chakraborty reporting for DD India.
All right, let me go back to the university rankings story. India beats China in the latest QS World University Rankings for Asia. Now, there are 148 higher education institutes from India on the list. China is second with 133 and Japan comes third with 96. Anil Thomas has more.
It is 148 versus 133 as India pips China on the latest QS World University Rankings for Asia. The Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, continues to retain the top ranking in India. IIT Delhi, along with IIT Bombay, are among the top 50, while there are 5 other Indian institutions in the top 100. They are IIT Madras, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, IIT Kharagpur, IIT Kanpur, and University of Delhi. With 148 featured universities, India is now the most represented higher education system in the QS World University Rankings Asia. This shows 37 new entries from India compared to last year's report. This is significant as in the same time period, just 7 main universities from China have made the cut.
We are happy that IIT Delhi is among top 50 universities in the QS Asia University Rankings 2024, securing 46th position. It is also heartening to know that India currently has largest number of universities featured in the Asia rankings. Importantly, IIT Delhi's Abu Dhabi campus will also be operational soon. With all these initiatives and efforts that are underway, I believe that we'll be able to further improve our international rankings.
Another highlight in the rankings is the Northeastern Hill University, Shillong, ranked 2nd regionally for the faculty-student ratio. This indicates a strong commitment to providing students with high-quality teaching and learning environments. This edition is the largest, with 856 institutions from 25 countries participating in the rankings. China manages to retain the topmost position in the QS World University Rankings Asia 2024. However, India has for the first time surpassed China in the number of ranked universities. Indian education institutions continue to shine, and the new education policy adds more impetus in the nation's pursuit of excellence and accolades in the field of education. Arnold Thomas's report, DD India.
All right, let me go back to the top story, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in general and the global summits being held in Paris on the poles and glaciers. That's number one. The second summit in Paris was the conference on Gaza aid. And the third would be the Paris Peace Forum, which would be addressed by French President Emmanuel Macron on Friday. I'll try to connect with my colleague Rebecca Bundan in Paris in just a bit. I'm told she's finally with us. Rebecca, if you can hear me, walk us through the Paris conference on Gaza aid. What did Macron hope to achieve by hosting it? And do you think he has succeeded in it?
Yes, well, this was a conference for humanitarian aid that was called on the sidelines of the Paris Peace Forum, which is coming up starting on Friday. And President Macron brought together leaders from various countries, Arab nations. We saw the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen attending, Charles Michel. And we saw various organizations, including representatives from the United Nations, various NGOs that are active on the ground in Gaza, international organizations. Just really, this conference was a push for aid for Gaza, given the situation that organizations have described, where there are shortages of basic necessities, difficulties getting access to medical supplies, they say, water, fuel, food. So really a push to try to mobilize aid into Gaza, given the situation, the Israel-Hamas conflict. But really what we heard from President Emmanuel Macron was that there was this call for a humanitarian pause to allow aid to get in, but also a push for a ceasefire as well. That's what he was really talking about. However, notably, there were sort of those who were absent, including there weren't representatives from Israel, and some people have said that there weren't really enough representatives in terms of heads of state and so on. So questions about how much this really could achieve.
Rebecca, France is also playing host to the 6th edition of Paris Peace Forum. What's on its agenda?
Yes, that's right. So the 6th edition of the Paris Peace Forum, that begins on Friday. There's a lot of anticipation ahead of that, given the fact that there are so many geopolitical issues that really need to come into focus now. We have got, comes against this backdrop, of course, of rising tensions between the United States and China, and then these conflicts as well, Russia's war in Ukraine, and now the Israel-Hamas conflict. So peace and security is really one of the main areas of focus of the Paris Peace Forum. So clearly these matters are going to be widely discussed, but other topics really coming up that are also very relevant now. Climate change is very high up on the agenda, issues related to poverty, and also cybersecurity and the rise of artificial intelligence and the risks that come with that. So all these topics are going to be discussed, and it's hoped that there can be a push towards cooperation between civil society, between governments, politicians, and the private sector as well. But not really any major breakthroughs expected to come through from this, but clearly a number of really key themes that are going to be discussed and are very critical.
Rebecca, thank you. Rebecca Abundant reporting there live from Paris. Thank you, appreciate it. All right, now take a look at some more stories making news around the world. As Cuba's economic crisis deepens with no end in sight, hundreds of people crowded outside Havana's international airport to make their way by air to Nicaragua and then overland to the United States. Earlier, about 10,700 Cubans were encountered at the US-Mexico border in September, up from 6,200 a month earlier, this according to a US government statistic. Germany's Prime Minister Olaf Scholz says that he is ashamed and outraged at the recent wave of anti-Semitic incidents in the country. He warns that his government will not tolerate such anti-Jewish hatred as he marks the 85th anniversary of the Nazis' Kristallnacht pogrom of Jews. Residents of Garissa in northeastern Kenya have been displaced from their homes after heavy rains in the region caused by the combined effect of two weather phenomena, the El Niño and Indian Ocean dipole. The Kenyan Red Cross says at least 15 people have died in the deluge. And still to come on DD India News Hour. A deep dive into the India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue. Winter session of India's parliament to begin on 4th December.
Welcome to Jaipur.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. India all set for 2+2 ministerial dialogue. US Secretaries of State and Defense to attend. White House calls India a key strategic partner. India reiterates need for zero tolerance for terrorism, calls for release of hostages held by Hamas, sends 38 tons of humanitarian assistance to Gaza. And French President Emmanuel Macron hosts a conference on humanitarian aid for Gaza, calls for protection of civilians. Right now, going back to the top story, the India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue will be held in New Delhi on Friday. Dr. Bhaskar Balakrishnan joins us from the New Delhi suburb of Greater Noida. Dr. Balakrishnan is a former Indian ambassador to Greece and Cuba. Ambassador, welcome to DD India News Hour. Now, how would you characterize the current state of play in India-US ties?
I think one can be very optimistic that, over the years, despite, irrespective of which party is in power in the United States, relations have grown steadily. And the foundation is very solid. It's a common commitment to democracy and an increasing number of people-to-people contacts with students, with Indian diaspora and Indian business engaging with their American counterparts. So the foundation is very solid. And I think the governments have taken advantage of it on both sides to build the relationship. I think we saw that during the Obama administration, we saw it during the Trump administration, now during the Biden administration. Of course, there are convergences on many issues, especially on the Indo-Pacific and on China's kind of approach to the whole region. There are some divergences. We have different views on how to handle Russia and also on certain other issues. But I think we, on both sides, are mature enough to handle the divergences in a mature way and build on the convergences and take them further. And this is visible in all different areas, and I'm sure the meeting tomorrow of the 2+2 will take it further.
Ambassador, what you spoke just now gives me a perfect segue into my next question to you. Now, you refer to the Indo-Pacific. The Indo-Pacific has acquired a salience of its own of late for both India and the US. Now, is there scope for a more robust India-US partnership in that part of the world? I ask you this because just this week, a US agency called the International Development Finance Corporation committed more than $500 million to support the development of a deep water shipping container terminal in the port of Colombo in Sri Lanka.
Well, I think these projects which China has marketed in various parts of the world and including in Sri Lanka, they have their own momentum and they have their own problems. I think the problem of debt, there's basically a financial problem and a viability problem for many of these projects. So it is too early to judge whether they will really succeed. In fact, an unsuccessful project can become a major irritant in bilateral relations. So let's see how things go. As far as India's approach to the Indo-Pacific is concerned, we are on a much more solid basis. I think most of our projects are based on economic viability. And of course, with the Indo-Pacific, there is a huge room for building cooperation, not only with the US, but with also the other Quad partners, like Japan, Australia, and possibly South Korea as well. So I think we don't, while we do have to keep track of what the Chinese are doing, especially in our region, Indian Ocean region, they're likely to be active in Maldives, they're active in Myanmar, they're active in Sri Lanka. But I think we have to pursue our own projects with all these countries and all our own activities, which are based on mutual benefit and economic considerations.
Talking about the Indo-Pacific, again, Ambassador Balakrishnan, India would host the Quad Summit next year. Now, if I were to ask you, what are the key drivers of the India-US partnership in that part of the world?
Well, as I mentioned, Indo-US partnership, first of all, has a very strong bilateral basis. Both sides have a lot to gain from each other. And it's a partnership which has a global canvas. It's not confined to the Indo-Pacific. It's also looking at West Asia. And, we have the I2U2
right,
and the IMEC. And we have this critical and emerging technology initiative. So it's a multi-dimensional and multi-theater kind of partnership. Indo-Pacific has attracted a lot of attention because of the global concern over the Chinese attitude of steamrolling over countries in the region. For example, when it suits China, it invokes the law of the sea in the dispute with Japan over the certain islands. When it doesn't suit China, it disregards the law of the sea when it regards the South China Sea. So China is really kind of not respecting the international legal framework, and that has created a lot of concern. Plus, of course, the tensions over Taiwan, which have been periodically raised and which are now becoming of concern because of the elections there. Should an election bring to power a pro-independent party in power in Taiwan, then the tensions will go up. So these are all matters of concern to India. And of course, we have our own set of problems with China as far as our border is concerned. And really, the refusal of the Chinese side to disengage in a meaningful way, as well as their whole attitude of leveraging Pakistan against India. So these are all things which, are of concern to us. I mean, with the US, we have, of course, this common concern over China, China's growth, and what China is seeking to do in the region.
Right.
With Pakistan, we have, of course, tried to make our American friends aware of the dangers of terrorism and a fragile state of Pakistan, which could be a problem in the region. And then we also have, in the G20, we have worked with the United States on various initiatives like the Global Biofuels Alliance and unrolling our digital public infrastructure. We have tried to play a constructive role in the G20 and keep geopolitical tensions, prevent them from derailing the outcome. And that has been appreciated. Going forward, let's see how things work out.
Sure. All right, we'll leave it at that. Ambassador Dr. Bhaskar Balakrishnan, thank you once again for joining us and sharing your thoughts and insights with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Right, moving on, the winter session of India's Parliament will commence from the 4th of December and continue till the 22nd. India's Parliamentary Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi said on Thursday that the session will be held in the new Parliament building and will have 15 sittings spread over 19 days. Now, 7 years back, with the aim of promoting entrepreneurship among the youth of India, the country's government launched the PM Yuva, that's Prime Minister Entrepreneurship Development Campaign, on this very day. The scheme is a flagship scheme to promote entrepreneurship education, capacity building, and for providing mentoring and hand-holding support to potential and aspiring entrepreneurs. Under the scheme, entrepreneurship education and training is provided to the youth through more than 3,000 institutions spread across the country. And these include 2,200 higher educational institutions, 300 schools, 500 ITIs, and 50 entrepreneurship development centers. Now, between 2016 and 2021, about 15 million youths have been provided training under this scheme. In India's apex education body, the University Grants Commission, which is responsible for coordination, standards and release of grants for educational institutions, has announced a new set of regulations for foreign universities setting up campuses in the country.
The University Grant Commission on Tuesday notified regulations to be adhered to by foreign universities setting up branch campuses in India. The guidelines have been prepared in line with the National Education Policy NEP 2020 that envision that top universities in the world will be facilitated to operate in India. According to the norms and guidelines notified by the Commission, foreign universities need to outline their admission process, decide the fee structure, and also send back funds and revenue generated in India to their parent campuses at their country of origin. The regulations are applicable to foreign universities ranked among the world's top 500 educational institutions seeking permission to set up branch campuses in India. 2 or more than 2 universities can collaborate to set up campuses in India, provided each institution meets the eligibility criteria individually. The newly announced UGC regulations also allow a foreign university to set up more than one campus in India. But for this, they will have to make a separate application for each proposed campus to the Commission. The guidelines were notified almost 10 months after the draft was made public for feedback. Based on the inputs, the final regulations have been reworked. The regulations also mandate the foreign universities to ensure that international faculty appointed to teach at the Indian campuses stay in the country for at least a semester. Also, the final rules have increased the time period for the Standing Committee to process applications from 45 days to 60 days. The recommendations of the committee should be placed before the UGC in 60 days, as opposed to 45 days in the draft regulations. The new regulation also restricts foreign universities to open learning centers, study centers, or franchisees that may act as representative offices of the university. The step is to stop them from undertaking promotional activities for their programs in their home jurisdiction or any other jurisdiction outside India. The regulations also make it mandatory for a university to seek approval from the Commission before starting any new program on their campus in India. For DD India, Amit Mukherjee.
Ahead of the Indian festival of Diwali, markets are flooded with earthen lamps and decorations. People are opting for local products, lending a local flavor to the festivities and giving a new boost to the economy as well. DD India's Abhishek Mahajan reports.
Crowded streets, people throng shops to buy lamps, candles, decorative lights. Time to deck up your home. It's Diwali time, India's biggest festival, the Festival of Light. For Prakash Chandra, his spot on the streets, Bhagirath Palace, a local market near iconic Lal Killa, is sacred. Despite comparatively cheaper wholesale price of Chinese products, he chooses to sell Indian-made products on Diwali.
People are going for locally made products more than the Chinese ones. They ask for Indian-made products because quality-wise they are better, and people now are more vocal towards local products.
Not only him, majority of the vendors choose the same path.
People are specifically asking for Indian products, which are made in the country. All these are handmade and locally made.
Awareness for locally made products is real. People in the national capital are opting for handmade, made in India products.
I have always been fond of Indian-made products, and because of us, these people will also be able to celebrate Diwali. I urge people to buy Indian products.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in the latest episode of Mann Ki Baat, once again pushed for local products amid the festive season. He also posted a video on X and shared a link on which people can post selfies with such products or their makers on the Namo application.
I will buy the Indian products and post the selfie on that Namo app. I will take that initiative definitely.
हमारे त्योहारों में हमारी प्राथमिकता हो वोकल फॉर लोकल और हम मिलकर उस सपने को पूरा करें हमारा सपना है आत्मनिर्भर भारत
One small step taken by all of us can bring along a big difference. This Diwali, spread light of happiness and be the reason of someone's smile. With cameraman Sharda, this is Abhishek Mahajan in Delhi for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. A 12-year-old girl diagnosed with a hole in her heart gets free treatment under India's Universal Health Coverage Program. And the 37th edition of India's National Games closes in Goa.
Climate change is wreaking havoc across the world. It's time to save the Earth or face extinction.
Watch Connecting the Dots at these times, only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Now, acting on the commitment of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Neighbourhood First policy, India sends a third tranche of more than 12 tons of earthquake relief material to Nepal on Thursday. As a first responder, India has provided a total of 33 tons of emergency relief materials that includes tents, sleeping bags and essential medical supplies to meet the urgent needs of the earthquake-affected families there. A 34-year-old mountaineer who hails from the western Indian state of Rajasthan has been discharged from a New Delhi hospital. Anurag Malu had gone on a mission to Mount Annapurna in Nepal, which is one of the 10 highest peaks in the world. He met with an accident while camping and suddenly went missing. He received treatment at the trauma center of a premier hospital in New Delhi and now has won the battle of life. Ayushman Bharat, a flagship scheme of the Indian government, was launched to achieve the vision of universal health coverage. It's proving to be a boon for the poor as they are now able to get medical treatment at elite hospitals, and that too free of cost. A 12-year-old girl from the northern Indian state of Bihar who got diagnosed with a hole in her heart got free treatment in a prominent hospital. Take a look.
Nazmeen, a 12-year-old girl from Kishanganj in the Indian state of Bihar, was diagnosed with a hole in her heart. Her father, Muhammad Idris, a vegetable seller, could not afford the cost of her surgery, which was estimated to be between 3 and 4 lakh rupees. It was at this time that Ayushman Bharat Yojana came to rescue, and Nazmeen was able to get free surgery at AIIMS, New Delhi.
The doctor at AIIMS told us that we have to deposit an amount of 60,000. But if you are having an Ayushman card, then the surgery will be free of cost. We were having the card and my daughter got her surgery without any difficulty. We want to thank Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
My father showed me Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's poster and told me that all the patients' treatment cost is being paid by PM Modi.
So far, more than 5 crore people have received free treatment under the Ayushman Bharat Yojana. The scheme has been a lifeline for many marginalized.
5 years back, when there was no Ayushman Yojana, a lot of patients with same problem used to come. And now also the people come. But now, about 40% of the patients are getting treatment because of Ayushman Yojana.
The Ayushman Bharat Yojana is a shining example of how Indian government's initiatives help the poor and the needy. It is a scheme that has made a real difference in the lives of millions of people. Munmun Bhattacharya's report for DD India.
And now to news from the world of sport. The 37th edition of the National Games in the state of Goa came to a glittering close on Thursday. The National Games began in Goa on the 26th of October. More than 10,000 Indian athletes competed across 42 disciplines. The western state of Maharashtra bagged 228 medals, including 80 golds. The Services Sports Control Board finished second, while the northern Indian state of Haryana finished third with 192 medals.
The 37th edition of National Games concluded in a glittering closing ceremony in Goa on Thursday. India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, Chief Minister of Goa Pramod Sawant and Indian Olympic Association President PT Usha were among the host dignitaries who attended the closing ceremony. Maharashtra topped the medal tally with a total number of 228 medals, which also included 80 gold, 69 silver medals and 79 bronze medals. Services secured second position while Haryana grabbed the third position. The games, which were held from the 26th of October to 9th of November, witnessed the participation of more than 10,000 athletes from across the country who competed in over 43 sports disciplines across 28 venues. Addressing the gathering, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar congratulated the athletes for putting up a spectacular performance.
I congratulate all the winners. But let me tell you, my young friends, every participant is a winner. This is mini India. Your 15 days must have been most memorable time of your life. You would have had the occasion to interact with your friends, north, south, east, west.
This time, coastal rowing was included for the first time. Beach handball also made a comeback in this edition. Along with this, the game of taekwondo also made a comeback in this edition of the National Games. Indian Olympic Association's President P.T. Usha, in her address, expressed her happiness on the successful conclusion of 37th edition of National Games.
This year's National Games have been truly exceptional in every sense. We witnessed a remarkable display of talent, dedication, and passion with a record-breaking number of 43 sports. Expansion of sporting disciplines not only demonstrate the growth and diversity of sports in our nation, but also offers our athletes an even broader stage to showcase their abilities.
The next edition of National Games will be held in Uttarakhand. With every passing year, India is witnessing a rapid growth in sporting landscape. On the other hand, the players are also enjoying the level of exposure that they are getting through events like National Games, Khelo India Games and various other government initiatives.
The 37th National Games in Goa came to an end with a glittering closing ceremony. Goa has set a high benchmark with hosting the biggest edition of the National Games successfully. Now it is the turn of Uttarakhand to host the next National Games and to set a new benchmark. With camera person Sumit Dhiman, this is Suchitra reporting for DD India from Goa.
New Zealand returned to winning ways at the Cricket World Cup following a 4-match slump as they beat Sri Lanka by 5 wickets at the M. Chinnaswamy Stadium on Thursday. Winning the toss, New Zealand opted to bowl first. Trent bowled and Tim Southee tore through the Sri Lankan top order. Then timely blows from Santner bundled out Lanka for 171. Opening batter Devon Conway and Rachin Ravindra got 4th place New Zealand's chase of 172 off to a fast start, and Daryl Mitchell got them close before they crossed the finish line in 23.2 overs. With victory left New Zealand on 10 points and in pole position to bag the last semi-final spot and join India, South Africa and Australia. Pakistan will now need to beat England by a massive margin to leapfrog New Zealand on net run rate. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.